Good day and welcome to our first episode of The Buzz, all that's happening around Abington Greenwave High School sports. My name is Shawn Reilly and I'm going to be hosting today's show where we hope to kind of bring you up to date on what's going on around Abington High School, on the fields, on the courts, at the hockey rinks. And with me today is our athletic director, Peter Serino. Peter, welcome aboard.
Thanks, Shawn. Happy to be here. Looking forward to the opportunity throughout the school year to inform people about what's going on with athletics and also be able to highlight some of the achievements of our student athletes.
We got a lot to talk about because we're at the start of the new school year, start of a bunch of fall seasons. Obviously, you and I and the folks in Abington know throughout the country there was a lot of different changes and restrictions last year. This year we're trying to work through them as we get more and more information. Obviously, face masks are important. And the kids are out there ready to play. They're out there in the practice fields. The games are starting this week. A lot of excitement, but some changes to not only the South Shore League, but to the state tournaments, to high school participation. So let's get right to it. Give us an update on our fall sports teams. Who's out there playing? How are the numbers? What's going on at Abington High School?
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to be back to some sense of normal. Obviously, as you mentioned, there's still a lot of things going on. But it's a little bit more of what we're used to compared to last year, which is great. We have about 250 students participating in fall athletics, which is good. It's a little bit more than that through a variety of sports. So we all the way from golf, cheerleading, football, cross country, golf, volleyball. We kind of run the gamut, and the kids have been working all summer. It's great. We had a strength and conditioning program that we had a number of students participate in to prepare for it. And hopefully we're ready to go. We've had some scrimmages already and games will be kicking off in the next week or so.
That's wonderful. And Abington, we have the benefit of having the grass football field area down at Memorial Field. We've got the two turf fields right here outside the high school. Just for those viewers at home who now might be coming back as fans, where do each of these teams play?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Obviously, our football team, our varsity football team, plays the majority of their games at Memorial Field. All of their home games will be down there this year, mostly Friday nights at 7 o'clock. The sub-varsity football games might vary in location. Some might be at Memorial Field behind the Frollo, and others might be on the turf field up at the high school. Our soccer teams, both boys and girls, will play here at 201 Glenowitz on the turf field. Our volleyball team will be in the gyms. The freshman team usually plays on the middle school side, and JV and varsity in the high school gym. Our cross-country team, their course is behind the Frollo, the start and finish line. It's actually a really unique course. It's a great place to watch a cross-country meet. Very rarely can you see the kids run for more than 15, 20 seconds. Usually you see them run by. But if you sit in the stands at Memorial Field, you can see they run a loop around at the beginning, and they go into the woods, and then they come out and they run a loop at the end. So for about half of the course, you can view standing in one spot, which is great. And then our golf team, they play at Strawberry Valley, their home matches. The golf course does a great job hosting them, creating some opportunities. And lastly, our cheerleading team kind of depends on where they go for competitions. Their competition season kicks off in late October. And then, of course, they'll be at the football games cheering the team on.
That's great. So we have basically about half the kids in Abington High School are participating in one of those sports in this fall season. Of course, we have the winter and spring season to come up. And something new this year that the school committee recently approved was to allow 8th grade participation, which I think is a great opportunity for some of our younger athletes who are kind of eager to dip their toes into high school sports. Explain a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. As you mentioned, about half of our students in the high school do participate. And this year we're able to afford the opportunity for some 8th graders to participate. And some people think that we're having 8th graders participate because our participation numbers are down at the high school, but it's actually the opposite. We've been able to add a number of programs. So in the fall, for example, volleyball is a newer sport for us. And that's about 45 to 50 girls that are participating. So when you take those 45 or 50, even if, say 10 or 12 of them we're playing other sports, that's 10 or 12 kids you're taking away from other sports. So it creates some openings. So the MIAA does allow for 8th graders to participate when you need them to fill a high school roster. So some of our sports, soccer, for example, we've had 2 teams, but that JV team, the numbers are a little bit low. So practicing isn't ideal. Or if you have some injuries or illness or things going on, you just don't have the substitutes. So to be able to afford those kids, the 8th graders, the opportunity to come up and play and get that high school experience a little bit earlier is great, but ultimately it really enhances the opportunity for the high school kids. We're able to provide a traditional athletic opportunity rather than kind of scrambling. Are we going to have enough for a game today? What are we going to do? Oh, practice is tough. We can't, go against each other. So that's the great thing about being able to have 8th graders participate.
Right, and it doesn't really kind of block out an existing sophomore or junior or freshman from participating. It's just an opportunity, like you said, if we needed a few more bodies to fill out a sub-varsity team, whether it's a JV or even a freshman team type of
Yeah,
idea?
that's correct. And I think it's really important for people to know that no high school student is being displaced for an 8th grader. So if any high school student wants to participate, particularly at the freshman level, we're not going to take an 8th grader on a team over them.
Right.
So if there's a high school student that's eligible for a team and an 8th grader is also eligible, the priority always goes to the high school student. So for example, our golf team, we have about 20 golfers. So we didn't need any 8th graders. So 8th graders don't have the opportunity to play golf. But with volleyball, for example, we only had 10 freshmen come out. And ideally, you're looking for that, 13 to 15 team for a team. So we were able to bring on 5 8th graders to come and participate, which is great.
Which is good. So instead of the 10 freshmen not being able to play, now they do get some play time because they have some extra kids on their team, whatever. So
yeah, that's great. And that's exactly what we ran into last year. We had 10 and it was good, but there are 6 girls on the court at a time, so it's really tough to simulate any sort of game action in practice.
Yeah, can't have inter-squad scrimmages if you don't have enough of a squad. So that's great. So it's we have great numbers at Abington. We've always a long tradition. Bringing in the new sports is wonderful. But now in the bigger scope, the South Shore League, which we've always been a part of, with the Tobin division and the Sullivan division, changes to that this year. Which is going to bring a couple of new opponents to Abington High School sports. Maybe some old opponents from yesteryear coming back. So why don't you give us that little rundown?
Yeah, so the South Shore League is the league that we compete in, and there are 10 member schools. And about 6 years ago, when we went to 10, we split the league into 2 divisions. So the Sullivan division, which are the schools with the larger enrollment, and then the Tobin division with the schools with the smaller enrollment. And ever since we made that split, Abington is, we've been right on the bubble. So we're in the middle road in terms of our league, in terms of enrollment. And every time the MIAA realigns, the league realigns. So this year, we moved from the Tobin side, which are the smaller schools, to the Sullivan side. So what that means is the teams that we're competing against for a league championship, the Sullivan division, are different. So now, for most sports, we'll be competing against Norwell, East Bridgewater, Randolph, and Middleborough. Those will be the 5 teams that make up the Sullivan division for the South Shore League.
Wow. With football being an exception to that list, that instead of Randolph in the South Shore League Sullivan, it's going to be Rockland.
Correct. Yeah, there are 2 exceptions in the fall. Football, the Rockland, it plays up and Randolph plays down, and that was made for competitive reasons, just strength of program in terms of numbers. Rockland has historically been able to field multiple teams, so they have a little bit more robust program. And then in volleyball, there's only 8 teams in the league that have the sport of volleyball, and 2 of the schools that don't happen to be on the Tobin side. So instead of having 5 and 3, Randolph moves over to the Tobin side for volleyball, and it creates a balanced 4 and 4.
Great. So those are your league competitors, but obviously we still will see Abington playing other towns like we normally do, like Carver or Cohasset or some of the other local communities. So
yeah, that's a great point. So the way the schedule breaks down for most sports, you play everyone on your side. So now we'll be on the Sullivan side. So that's Norwell, East Bridgewater, Randolph, and Middleborough. You play them twice, a home and away, and then you play the other side, the Tobin side, the Carver, Mashpee, Hull, Cohasset, Rockland. You play them once. So you're still going to see those teams on the schedule, but it's just going to be, you'll only see them once. So you might only go to Mashpee instead of going to Mashpee and having them come here.
Yeah. Now, like football this year, obviously, I'm heavily involved in football. We're not playing Mashpee this year. So we're starting off, I think, with Cohasset, Apponequet, North Quincy. Those are our first 3 games. Non-league games, but still going to be competitive games. And you'll see, like most every other town, the league games then kind of kick up in the second half of the season. So always something to look forward to. So that's a big change for Abington. We're moving up into the Sullivan division, playing now bigger teams like Middleborough. It's going to be a tough competition. But also now going again above the fray here is the MIAA alignment statewide, another big change.
Yeah, so the MIAA's alignment cycle, they realign every 4 years up until this point. Going forward, it's going to be every 2 years. And there's a lot of changes at the state level this year. For us, what it means is some different divisions for some of our teams. So a lot of our teams have shifted divisions. Traditionally, there were 4 divisions in a lot of sports, and we fell in 4. Now, for a lot of the sports that were 4 divisions, some of them are expanding to 5, and we actually moved up to Division 3 because our enrollment has gone up. It really coincided with the opening of the new building.
Yeah.
So the last alignment cycle was based off of the enrollment the final year in the old building, and now obviously our numbers have gone up. So in the fall, you'll see some teams competing in Division 3 opposed to Division 4. And then in football, there's 8 divisions. Previously, we were in Division 7, and now we'll be in Division 6.
Division 6. All right. And now, when you win your league, in the past, you would then go play a sectional playoff game and compete. Maybe then the South sectional winner would play the North sectional winner, and the Central and West would play each other, and then you'd have a state final or semifinals. But that's different now.
Yes. So not only do we realign and go to a new division, it's now what they call a statewide tournament. Wow. So it was always statewide in the sense that there was a state champion, but as you mentioned, all of your initial games would be in the South. So they would play it down. So there was a South sectional winner, a North sectional winner. They would play to play the Central West.
And that's football and soccer and
Yep, that's pretty
sports.
much every sport. Yep. Some sports where there were fewer teams, they'd just have an East and a West.
Right.
But for the most part, yeah. Now it's just a Massachusetts state tournament. So in the state championship, Abington could play Rockland next door, whereas before that would never happen. You would play in the South. Which is really a unique thing and exciting that some of our state semifinal or state championship matchups could be within your own league or within your own region instead of, I think of our baseball team, state championship. We're going out to Springfield to play a team way out there that nobody's really heard of, and we played Cohasset in what was the South sectional final. There's a chance in this new system that game against Cohasset could have been for the state championship, which really does create some unique opportunities.
So it's interesting though. There's 2 sides to that because you could have your first round playoff game might not be Cohasset. It might be Oakmont for somewhere out near Springfield. Abington might be playing in Springfield area, or someone from Worcester might be coming to the North Shore to play at any level of those playoffs. So, and as you said, the state championship could be someone next door, but it could be someone on the New York border. It's wide open now.
Yeah, absolutely. So you could play anyone in the state of Massachusetts in your division, which, Nantucket could be going out to the New York border. It's possible. So a lot of people will focus on that and say, that's crazy, that doesn't make sense. And it is tough. But one of the reasons that they made that decision is for equity, to make the path to a state championship equal. So sometimes in particular for us in the South and the North, where there are more schools. So you would have to win more games to get to the state semifinals and the state championship than teams in the Central and West because they just had less teams.
Yeah.
So there was an example from a few years ago where a baseball team from Eastern Massachusetts, the state championship was their 7th game of the state tournament, and they were playing a team, it was only their 4th game.
Wow.
So the feeling is that's not really a fair and equal opportunity for everyone, and sometimes the 3 or 4 best teams in the state might touch each other. That region might be really good at that sport. So now it gives those schools an opportunity to progress in the tournament, and maybe those are the final 4 teams in the state, rather than they might get matched up with them in the first round.
Well, that's interesting, especially like in a sport like baseball or softball, where your pitcher can't pitch every game. But if you're only playing 4 games to get to the state tournament versus playing 7 games to the state tournament, that 7-game team is at a disadvantage against that 4-game team, depending on how those games are spread out and all. So that might be, I'm eager to see how that pans out over the next year or two, if it's something that people like, or if they just don't like the long travel times. We don't know where we're traveling. It's early. First, you got to win your league. And then, on top of winning your league, to determine who you play in the playoffs is a new system, the power ranking system. It's an updated system, not a new system, but an updated power ranking system. Try to explain that to me.
Yeah, so it's complicated, and it's never been used before. So it's new. So we think we have a grasp on it. We've seen some data from previous years to kind of see how it'll play out. But the power rating system is how it does 2 things. The most obvious is the seeding. So previously, teams were seeded strictly based off of winning percentage for almost all sports. Football had a different power rating system, and lacrosse had something a little different. But most sports, it was just winning percentage. So if you're 10-0 and I'm 9-1, you're ahead of me.
Yep.
It doesn't matter who you played, or it doesn't matter who I played. Now the seedings based off of the tournament will be based off of this power rating system. And the power rating system takes into account, obviously, your record, but also your margin of victory. So if our soccer team wins by 2 goals or 5 goals, there's a difference. And then also it takes into account your opponent's record and power rating, and your opponent's power rating and record, which essentially is strength of schedule. So you're better off sometimes playing tougher opponents and maybe losing a close game or winning a close game than playing a really weak opponent and winning by a lot. So that will determine the rankings, but also what it does is it allows for teams with a sub 500 record to qualify for the tournament. So previously, you could only qualify if you won your league, came in second place, or were 500.
Yeah.
So now there's a top number. So for most sports, it's the top 32 teams in the division will qualify. Football's only 16, but the top 32 teams. So even if you're 8-12, but you played a tough schedule, you played teams close, maybe you lost a lot of close games, you might be 27th in the power ratings, and you qualify, which is great. But you can also still qualify by going 500. So even if you're the 40th ranked team, but you were 10-10, you get in, which is something that we thought was really important. So kids know when they get in. Obviously, we have some teams here at Abington where winning a league championship is the ultimate goal, and that's what they're going for. But for a lot of our teams, and not just in Abington, but across the state, qualifying for the state tournament is the goal.
Yeah.
And a power rating system, it's kind of like the NCAA tournament. Like, it's unveiled last minute. But for kids and families, that moment of, hey, we won, like, let's celebrate. It's a big deal. We wanted to make sure we kept that intact. So we do have that, but if you do go 500, you'll still get in, and they'll just expand the bracket to a preliminary round to include those teams.
So that's really interesting, especially given the fact that Abington's bumping up into the Sullivan division, which means we're playing bigger teams. You would assume they're going to be some stronger competition. So the fact that we don't go 10-0 or 8-0 or whatever doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to the state tournament. And the fact that you don't win your league doesn't mean you're not going to the state tournament. So it's something that, I mean, obviously that's our goal. We'd love to, all these sports would love to win as many games as we can. But it's just something that we're going to have to kind of adjust to, like, what is your long-term goal? If the Social League banner would be nice, but being in that state championship and, going as deep as you can is always a thrill, no matter what sport you're in. And there's also no incentive, correct me if I'm wrong, for a team to run up the score as far to increase their power ranking, right? Yeah,
that's correct. So while margin of victory is part of the formula, it's capped. So in football, for example, whether you win by 14 or 50, it counts as 14. So that's the max number. In soccer, it's 5 goals. In basketball, it's 10 points. So if you win by, 10 points or 20 points, it counts as 10. Obviously one of the fears, as you mentioned, is teams running up the score to increase their ratings. So hopefully that, the individual sport committees for the MIAA settled on the number as to, what the appropriate number is. And hopefully that prevents that from happening.
But that's interesting too, because that's where you might see a situation where a football team might go for a last minute touchdown to get over that 14-point victory hump to get that better power rating, or a basketball team might want to make sure they win by more than 10, or soccer more than 5, things like that.
Yeah, and it's a tough thing for coaches to really wrap their head around because it's kind of like a internal conflict because part of teaching kids how to play, you want to teach them time and score. So in football, you're up 13 with 30 seconds to go. It's, all right, let's run the clock out. We're good. But now you have that debate, well, do we try and score because, this might be the difference between a 16 and 17 seed and a 3-hour bus ride.
Right.
Obviously competitively that's tough, but also a 3-hour bus ride means, kids might have to get dismissed from school early. They might get home even later. So those are things that, you coaches got to take into account. And it's going to be a learning experience for everyone.
Yeah, and the fans are going to have to learn this too, so they're not yelling at the coach, like, what are you doing? A lot of times you're trying to get your JV in at the end of the game to get some good quality play time, and there might be situations where you can't do that because you need to kind of maintain your score or try to get to that level. Very interesting. It's some big changes. A lot of things stay the same. A lot of things are going to be different. The excitement is all going to be huge this year. I think a lot of people are eager to get back into the stands. Volleyball is an indoor sport here at Abington High School and all the other high schools, obviously. That any fan who's interested in going to see a volleyball game, masks are required anytime you step foot in the school building. That's true across the state, across the league. So if you go to volleyball, I'd encourage you to do so. Volleyball will be shown live via the Huddle system and Abington Cam, so you can follow their schedules. All the other games which are outside, the players do not have to wear masks. Fans, we do encourage you to use social distancing. Be safe, be smart out there because we want to get through this season and beyond as much as we can. And how can parents and sports fans, alumni basically keep up to date on the schedule for all these games?
Yeah, so we have a new scheduling system this year, Arbiter Live. So it's through a company called Arbiter. So arbiterlive.com, and then just search Abington, and you'll be able to pull up. All of our schedules are there. You can actually sign up for alerts for your favorite teams. So when a schedule is changed, which undoubtedly will happen, you can get a notification. Comes right to your email. So it's really a great tool. It is new this year, so I'm sure there will be some bumps in the road as we go through some things. But that's the spot to get your schedules. It's arbiterlive.com, and just search Abington, and it'll come right up.
So I'm going to spell that, ARBITER, and then the word live, arbiterlive.com. That's where you want to go. Or you can also follow Mr. Serino on Twitter at AbingtonAD. Is another way to kind of get some updates, maybe some last-minute changes or scores or weathers or whatever. But the schedule is on arbiterlive.com.
Yep, absolutely. And also, as you mentioned, the Twitter is a great spot to get information. The power rankings that I referenced earlier, those will be published in various news media outlets and hopefully on the MIAA website. So I'll share that link on the Twitter account so people can kind of see where the teams are standing. Probably late September, early October, those will start to roll out.
That's great. Well, I want to thank you, Peter, for stopping by to kind of get this rolling and kind of announce what's coming on this season for Green Wave Sports with the golf, cheer, football, boys soccer, girls soccer, cross country, volleyball. A lot of excitement going to be out there and around Green Wave Nation. I want to thank Kevin Tachi and Matt Nelson, who are in the control booth, for helping us put this all together. Any final words, Mr. Athletic Director? No,
we're just excited to go. We're very fortunate. We have a great group of kids, as always, here in Abington. And I think we're going to have a fun year, an exciting year. And I know the kids are excited for people to be able to come and watch them play again. So if you do have the opportunity, we'd love to see you at games. And hopefully we'll have a good year and look forward to future shows where we can showcase some of our student athletes and also answer any questions that people have about the athletic program.
So there's a lot of buzz going around Green Wave Nation right now, and we're all excited to get started with this season. I want to thank you guys for all tuning in. We will try to bring you some more shows and updates, as Peter just mentioned, as we move forward these seasons. And hope you enjoyed this introductory show, and we look forward to seeing you later. Thanks for tuning in.